Great to have you with us. Some global news now. The final round of the French presidential election takes place tomorrow. Incumbent President Emmanuel Macron faces far-right challenger Marine Le Pen in the race to lead France for the next 5 years. Our correspondent in Paris, Ross Cullen, looks ahead to that vote. Thank you for being with us, Ross. So they were pretty close in a round, and that was probably very uncomfortable for Macron. Apparently, that gap has widened again. How does it look going into these elections?
Yeah, well, it looks around 55 to 45, more or less. They are the kind of poll numbers that we've been looking at over the last few days. Yesterday was the last day we had a chance to see the polling numbers, because today, Saturday, is meant to be a quiet day of reflection. No electioneering, no campaign rallies, no speeches by the candidates giving the public. It's meant to be giving the public a chance to reflect on the choice that awaits them when they cast their votes tomorrow, Sunday. But on Friday, the numbers were looking pretty healthy for Emmanuel Macron in terms of votes in this decisive second round vote tomorrow, Sunday. Around 55 to 57% of those votes going to the incumbent president, with Marine Le Pen, his right-wing challenger, looking to score around 45 to 47%. Now, she obviously needs much more than that if she's going to cut his lead and to be able to beat Emmanuel Macron, to succeed him in the presidency here in France. She does have that lead to try to erode. She has been much closer, much tighter than previous attempts to win France's presidential election, making it uncomfortable for Emmanuel Macron. She's really been breathing down his neck, not just in poll numbers, but on certain policy areas as well. But it can't be denied that if you're looking just at the most recent public surveys, then Emmanuel Macron does have a lead going into tomorrow's vote.
And these are two very different candidates. So you use the words, the term far right. She's a nationalist. She doesn't believe, I understand, in the movement of people, which is something that the EU is pretty strong on. What would it mean for France on the off chance that Marine Le Pen is voted in?
Well, think about some of the other shocks that we have seen in international politics over the last few years. For example, when Donald Trump stormed to the US presidency, beating predictions, when the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. That was also seen as a shock. The election of Marine Le Pen, a far-right nationalist, to the French presidency would also be a serious shock and would send those shockwaves through Brussels. You mentioned the European Union. She has previously advocated for France to leave the European Union, then softened that to France just leaving the single currency, the euro, and then has since softened that to saying that she wants to reform the European Union within, to try to change it into more of an alliance of nations, tear up the French Germany. That's the real axis, the real driver of the European Union since its formation, the Paris-Berlin link up. She wants to distance France from being just so close to Germany, just so close as well to the United States. She has previously looked to Russia as a more reliable partner, saying that she wants to see a NATO-Russia rapprochement as soon as the war in Ukraine is over. You specifically mentioned the movement of people. She does want to see that anybody who is living in France, who is not a French citizen, is disadvantaged when it comes to accessing French welfare and French social and French employment opportunities. That is something that would involve her being able to try to circumvent or tear up or change a lot of European Union legislation. But she says that is needed to try to reform France for the French people as part of her nationalist brand of politics.
And of course, because of the timing, their views on the Russia-Ukraine conflict would both be in the spotlight right now. Give us a quick overview of what where they both stand on that.
Well, Macron has been really comfortable in his role as the wartime diplomat over the last couple of months. He has been speaking to President Biden and Prime Minister Johnson, Western allies like the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Also, he's able to say, I've been speaking to President Putin I've been speaking to President Zelensky. He is trying to broker peace talks and dialogue. He's trying to bring the parties together to show that there could be a way to try to end this conflict. So he has been able to use that experience in the campaign to say, I am a statesman focusing on the war that we are suffering here in Europe at the moment. There is a war on our continent, he says. There is a war in our neighbourhood. We need to be doing everything we can to try to stop that. Marine Le Pen condemns the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but she has found it very hard to shake off her past pro-Putin sympathies, saying previously she admires the policies of Vladimir Putin. There was a photo taking of her shaking hands with the Russian leader that she published in some campaign literature that she then had to destroy, get rid of that literature. Obviously, it didn't play well as a vote winner. She also took a loan for her party from a Russian bank. She has previously also said that the Crimean Peninsula, after the Russian annexation and then the referendum that was held there, saying that Crimea is part of Russia. So Emmanuel Macron used that in the political debate they had, the TV debate on Wednesday, saying that when you, Marine Le Pen, speak about Russia, you're just speaking about your banker. So that is his line of attack, and she has said, though, that she does condemn the invasion of Ukraine. She sees Ukraine as a sovereign state, but she's found it very hard to shake off those pictures that have been published of her shaking hands with Vladimir Putin.
All right, thank you, Ross. So you've outlined the stakes. They're sky high here. Does it feel like that in France? Are French people on edge? What is the mood like a day before?
Well, it will be a historic election. There is no denying that. When you look at the facts, if Emmanuel Macron is re-elected tomorrow, he will be the first French president in 20 years to win re-election. Not since Jacques Chirac in 2002 has a sitting French president been able to win a second term in office. So he will be making history if he's able to do that. If Marine Le Pen were to win, well, she would be making history as the first female president in French history. So there is a lot at stake. There will be history made tomorrow, whatever happens, whoever wins. And so there is a lot of focus on that election, not just here in France, but also in the wider European space and also in the world as well, because France is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. It's a nuclear power. It has 1.5 million citizens living in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. So it has a worldwide impact. And this really is, it will be, as I've outlined, those two facts about Macron's re-election or Marine Le Pen being the first female president, it will be a historic vote tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. Ross Cullen live from Paris. And just to recap, let's look at his earlier report, the final round of that presidential election taking place tomorrow.
The French presidential campaign has come to its conclusion. After an intense two-week battle following the first round, Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen now face the second round runoff of the French presidential election. They've been campaigning up and down the country, from here in Paris to small towns in the French countryside, debating purchasing power and the wider economy, the environment and the war in Ukraine. Whatever happens on Sunday, it will be historic. If Emmanuel Macron wins, he'll become the first French president in 20 years to be re-elected. If Marine Le Pen wins, well, she'll become the first female president in French history. Ross Cullen for SABC News